Well, more for you now on President Trump today admitting for the first time that his lawyer did pay the porn star Stormy Daniels not to tell her story during the election campaign of 2016 and that he was then reimbursed. Well, Mr. Trump tweeted earlier today about the allegations, saying, quote, "Mr. Cohen, an attorney, received a monthly retainer not from the campaign and having nothing to do with the campaign, from which he entered into, through reimbursement, a private contract between two parties known as a non-disclosure agreement." So there we are, President Trump's words. Let's talk it through with Professor Capri, who's a political commentator from the American Research University in Washington. Thank you very much for being with us. Well, what do you make of it all? It's such an extraordinary story. There seem to be new twists and turns every day. In the end, what does it boil down to, do you think, and what does it mean for the White House?
Well, there's a number of issues. I mean, there are political considerations and there are legal considerations. I mean, it seems as if, the most recent Gallup tracking poll of approval for President Trump has him roughly hovering around 43% approval rating, which is relatively average for President Trump. This was prior to these revelations that have come out really in the last 24 hours because Rudy Giuliani, the former mayor of New York, is now part of President Trump's legal team. And he came on television on Fox News just yesterday evening and this morning, and he basically said that President Trump knew about Michael Cohen's payment to Stormy Daniels, and then he also made some really interesting statements about the reason that President Trump fired former FBI Director Jim Comey. So there's a lot to unpack here. It seems as if, the voters, at least right now, are not necessarily concerned about particularly the issue of Stormy Daniels. Most people believe that, according to, I believe it was a Politico poll, that 56% of Americans believe that he had an affair, but roughly 52% don't care, and it hasn't changed their opinion at all. So really now it's a legal question about the federal elections laws that are twofold. One having to do with potential violations on behalf of Michael Cohen, and the other having to do with potential violations on behalf of now President Trump.
And could those issues be potentially criminal in nature, and could that then be a real threat to the White House, do you think?
Yes, they could be criminal in nature. The Federal Elections Commission, oftentimes it's resolved in a civil matter through paying a fine and a penalty. But there are examples in the justice system where federal elections violations have actually been charged criminally. So in the case, for example, of Michael Cohen, had he, if you could prove that he paid this $130,000 to Stormy Daniels to benefit the Trump campaign, then that is a violation on behalf of Michael Cohen because it was not disclosed and it well exceeds the individual campaign contribution limit for federal campaigns. So those two things make Michael Cohen in violation. Now, if President Trump reimbursed Michael Cohen for those things and they were to the benefit of the campaign, again, the key being to the benefit of the campaign, then President Trump is also in violation of campaign rules. And it does not matter if it's his own personal money. If the intent was to benefit the campaign, it needed to be disclosed, even if it was from the campaign candidate themselves.
And just going back to what you were saying earlier on about the impact on public opinion, do you think ordinary Americans actually care about all of this? I mean, they might be fascinated by it. It's the great story, isn't it? The president and the porn star, if you like,
right?
And their alleged relationship. But do they care? And does it matter? And will it matter, in terms of voting?
At this point, there's no real indication that the salacious details surrounding President Trump and his alleged affair with this adult film star have had any real impact on public opinion. I think that there's a reason for that. I think partially it's because, number one, this happened prior to him being in office, and number two, there has always been this perception of Donald Trump, the entertainer, and someone who did not set out to live their lives in politics. So there's a lot of forgiving and forgetting about President Trump's personal conduct. And that even includes amongst, more conservative evangelical voters amongst the Republican base that see this as a journey, of President Trump finding his relationship with the Lord and therefore don't necessarily hold it against him because it happened in 2005, 2006.
Good to talk to you and get your analysis. Thank you very much for being with us, Professor Capri, political commentator from the American Research University. Thank you.